to me, this was a very significant thing. I mean, I would go to meetings in Baltimore, which were sort of inspired by, say, Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition movement. We would always begin our movement with a prayer, and I had to get used to the fact that though I was not religious, I was expected to hold hands with everybody else and engage in this prayer. In Latin America, again, a lot of the movement was sort of inspired by religious by religiosity and by religious organization, and the churches were a very significant part of this, and the churches were very, very connected to political action. In Costa Rica, for example, I went to a commune where the priest and the local population had organized a rest center for the guerrilla fighters coming out of Nicaragua. They would sometimes come out wounded and they need care and they needed rest and that before going back in to fight in Nicaragua. And in talking to the priest, we asked the kind of question of, well, you know, this is a very organized thing here and you're obviously political active. The population is with you. The population were providing all of the services that needed to be provided, providing the food and healthcare and help and all that kind of thing. And this is a very, very progressive thing. It was a Christian-based community, as it were, and the priest was at the head of it. And I kind of said, well, you know, how do you get on with the hierarchy? The bishop and so on. And in this case, the bishop was not terribly fond of what they were doing. But he said something very interesting to me, which I think was very prophetic. And that very interesting thing was this. He said, look, I don't need the bishops to do what I'm doing. I've got the support of the people. The people want to do this. I am very much with them. I try to give them guidance and we help and we work very well. I am more important to the bishops than the bishops are important to me. Because without me, the bishops would not have the kind of popular base which they get from actually the kind of work that I'm doing here. So when the bishops come down here and tell me to stop doing what I'm doing, I'm saying, well, if I stop doing what I'm doing, you'll no longer have a base, a populist base for you. And he said, I've had that conversation a couple of times. And they then left me alone and said, oh, well, basically you continue doing what you're doing. Well, the theology of liberation was so strong in Central America that it sparked all kinds of attacks upon religious figures. Archbishop Romero in El Salvador got assassinated in his church. There were sort of 4 American nuns who were murdered in El Salvador. And the other thing that I learned while there was, and I had an opportunity to talk to one of the members of the junta that came into power in Nicaragua after the revolution had succeeded, Sergio Ramirez, a poet, a literary figure and the like, who was one of the junta. And he said a couple of interesting and, again, memorable things to me, which were this. And he said, you know, it's interesting. Many people here like to talk about globalization. And they're thinking about, oh, my goodness, how do we organize against globalization? Well, he said, if you want a ready-made organization, which is global in structure and which is capable of confronting globalization, you would go to the Jesuits. And he said nearly all of the people working in a lot of this revolutionary movement in Nicaragua come from a Jesuit background. We, all of us, got our ideas about justice and so on in the Jesuit seminaries. And that educational base gave an ideological base and a Christian base, if you like, to what it was we were doing. Now, we have seen social movement after social movement emerge around the world, but there's no organizing force at the center of it. The trade unions are not able to do it in most parts of the world. They still exist quite powerfully in some. But in most parts of the world, the trade union movement is not, and socialist movement is not very, very strong. And in much of the world also, the evangelical movement is taking over. But there is a need, and this is, I think, the important argument I want to make. there's a need to have within a political movement some notion of meaning, some notion of the meaning of existence, of life, and all the rest of it, that makes for the importance of some sort of religious doctrine central to what politics can be about.